Good morning. Today is Thursday, May 30th, 2024. In Bechukos Lechu, God says at the beginning of this morning's Torah portion, if you follow in my ways, God says to us, then there are all kinds of blessings that are going to come to you. V'im lo sishmuli, but God says if you do not listen to me, then the opposite of blessings will happen to us. So the first part is blessings. Fantastic, wonderful blessings. And the last pasuk, the last verse, the ultimate climax of the blessings is the following verse. Ve'eshbar motos olchem, and I break the bars of your yoke, of your burden, v'olech kem komamios, and I march you upright. I took you out of Egypt. I break the bars of your yoke, and I lead you or march you upright. The first interesting thing is the first part of the verse is in the past tense. I took you out of Egypt. And then the next two phrases are in the present and maybe even going into the future. I break, present tense, the bars of your yoke, and I, present tense, march you or guide you upright. The Rashbam, one of the classic commentators to the Torah, says that these last two phrases, breaking the bars of the yoke and guiding us upright, those two go together. They're connected. That is, one is the result of the other. We are marching, being guided through life by God upright because God breaks the bars or the bonds of our yoke. So the question is, in what way? What does that mean? And I want to share with you two very short answers, but I think very powerful answers. The first answer is given by Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner, and he quotes the passage in the Talmud. Talmud says as follows: Amar Rabbi Elazar teaches, Adam Arishon, Adam, first man. How tall was he? Well, I'll tell you how tall he was. Adam Arishon, min ha'aretz ad l'rakia. He was standing on the ground, and his height reached the sky. Now, I don't know whether that means to say that Adam, the first man, was literally so tall that he could reach the sky, and I don't know what that means. I also don't know, it might mean figuratively he was very tall, or it might mean that he was spiritually tall. We're talking about Adam before the sin in the Garden of Eden. So he was spiritually very, very tall in a metaphoric manner. I can't tell you what the meaning of the Talmud is. Those are three possibilities. But the Talmud continues. V'kivin shesarach, but the moment that Adam sinned, Adam and Eve, of course, the moment that they sinned, heniach HaKadosh Baruch Hu yadav alav umiato. God put his hand, so to speak, on top of Adam and lowered him, squeezed him down, pushed him down to, I guess, normal size, either physically, literally, metaphorically, spiritually. But that's what the Talmud says. Another passage in the Talmud says, however, ubiyamos HaMashiach, but when the Messiah comes, when the Mashiach comes to usher in the Messianic era, then va'olech eschem kol memios, God will march us upright. Quoting our verse. So, what Rav Hutner says is, what our passage means to say is, when the Mashiach comes, the Messianic era arrives, then the yoke that is on us will be removed, and we will regain the stature of Adam before he sinned. I assume this means in a spiritual, moral, emotional manner. But basically, what this is saying, according to Rav Hutner, is this is a blessing. This is a blessing. So remember, the Torah portion starts with a list of blessings, and this is the last one. And the last one is about the blessing that will come in the Messianic era when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes, there will be a blessing, a bracha, of the future elevation of human dignity and spiritual attainment with the coming of Mashiach. That's what it means according to Rav Hutner. Okay, it's a very nice blessing. We hope it will come. We hope it will come soon. But I want to share with you a second opinion. And this second opinion is from Bailey Newman. And Bailey Newman says as follows. Bailey Newman says, remember the quote that's so famous from Mr. Rogers. I've shared it before. You probably heard it before. Mr. Rogers from the famous children's story. You know, he was an incredible person in so many ways. So he would often tell the story in interviews about when and even on his show, about when he was a small boy and he would see something scary on the news. He would see, God forbid, a disaster, or he would know about real suffering among his neighbors or something terrible that happened that he was aware of as a little boy. And his mother would say to him, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. That is, his mother encouraged him not just to see the tragedy, but also to look at the rest of the picture, to look for those who are helping, who are trying to make it better, who are trying to remove the yoke from someone's shoulders. Look for the nurses and the paramedics and the firefighters and the friends and the spiritual leaders, the people who are on the sidelines, but they jump into the action to try to involve themselves. They choose to involve themselves. And so what he was really saying is you can train your mind to focus only on the suffering, or you can train your mind to focus on the suffering and also on the goodness that follows to help try to alleviate that suffering and tragedy. So, Bailey Newman is a social worker, and she once had a client who was a teenage girl, and this girl had challenges, emotional challenges in her life, and she was trying hard to overcome them. So in one of their sessions, Bailey Newman told this story about Mr. Rogers to this patient, this teenage girl. And the girl said to her, I know what you mean. She said sometimes where she lives, there was a subway system. She said sometimes she would make paper cranes, to take paper and to fold up into something that looks like a crane. And inside the paper, she would write something, a blessing, have a good day, or praise, you're a good person, something like that. She would make these little paper cranes, and she would just leave them on her seat when she left the subway. She had no idea who would see it. She didn't have anybody in mind. But when she got up at her stop, she just left it on her seat. So Bailey Newman says to her, well, okay, that's interesting, but what did you gain from that? How did you even think about doing that in the first place? So this girl says, well, sometimes in the morning, I'm going to school on the subway. I see all these strange faces around me, and I realize that all these strange faces, every single person around me, they're going through unknown stories, I don't know what's going on in their lives. They're strangers. And they're going through silent struggles and sorrows. I have no idea about them. But she says she asked herself, what can I do to help? What can I do to become part of their story, to walk into the scene and offer them some unexpected moment of joy, of recognition, of awareness. And so I had this idea, and that's what I do. And I imagine, and I don't get any feedback from this, I imagine that somebody sits down, they see this thing, it looks pretty, they open it up, and it says something, I don't know, have a good day, you're a good person, may you be blessed, whatever it is. And maybe they get a lift out of it. Maybe they feel a little bit better. Rav Noach Weinberg, of blessed memory, was the founder of Aish HaTorah. He was an incredible scholar and motivator. So Bailey Newman says that she learned this lesson from Rav Noach Weinberg. Let's go back to the book of Shemos, the beginning of the book of Exodus. Moshe grows up in the palace of the Paro. He goes out to see what's happening with his people, and he sees an Egyptian who is beating a Jewish person. And the Torah says, Vayifen ko v'ko, and he looked this way and that way. Vayar ki ein ish, he saw there was nobody else there, and he struck the Egyptian. He killed the Egyptian. So, if you look at the passage, it appears, on the simple level, that Moshe was looking to see if there was anyone else who might witness it. He didn't want to be caught. If somebody's there and he's watching me, maybe I'm not going to do this. That's why he looked here and there, to make sure that he would not be witnessed and would not get in trouble. Rav Noach Weinberg said, no. That's not what it means. Vayar ki ein ish. Moshe saw there was no person. Because Moshe was looking for someone else to be a helper to this poor Jew who was being beaten for no reason. Vayar ki ein ish, he saw there was no one else to help. Moshe wasn't afraid of that someone else would get him in trouble. But Moshe also was not looking to be the star. He looked for helpers, but there were no helpers. So Moshe became the helper. Our sages teach in Pirkei Avos, Bimkon she'ein ish, in a situation where there is no person, hishtadel lios ish, you have to become that person. If there's someone else to take care of it, you can let them take care of it. But if there's no one else, you have to do it. Even if it's outside of your comfort, even if it's not part of your nature. You have to run into the building. You have to rush in to help. You have to do whatever it takes when there's no one else to help. That's what the pasuk means. God lifts the yoke so that we can stand upright. Just like Moshe had someone who lifted him up when he was a baby and he was in the river, and the daughter of Paro lifted him up. God does that for us, allowing us to stand upright. And God has all kinds of messengers and intermediaries who God sends to us to help us. And every one of us must know moments when somebody helped us. We cried out and someone was there. Someone understood us. Someone showed up for us. I remember that moment. It's now 3.5 weeks ago. I was in the shul. It was a Sunday morning. And I fell. And I was in a lot of pain. And I couldn't move. And I called out, I need help. I could not get up. And there was someone in the next room, and they came and they helped. That's on a physical level, and they lifted me up so I was able to get home and then go to the hospital. But physically, emotionally, spiritually, in all kinds of ways. And so we need to see that there are helpers around us, that there is goodness around us. But that's not enough. We have to ourselves become those helpers to others. Just like in this pasuk, where God says to us that God will lift off the bars of our yoke and we will be upright. We have to do the same for others. We have to not only see the helpers, but we have to become them. So therefore, this is not just a bracha, it's not just a blessing that there will be helpers, but it's also a challenge. It's a challenge for us to emulate that. And also we, especially bimkom she'ein ish, when there is no other helper available, hishtadel lios ish, we have to become the helper. And so that means we have to notice a person who's sitting alone and go over to them. We have to notice if a person is struggling, and we have to figure out a sensitive and thoughtful way to be able to lift their spirits. And we have to be grateful to those people that help us, that lift us up physically, spiritually, metaphorically. And we have to help others. We have to be cognizant of our ability and responsibility to remove the yoke on the necks of others. Just like God removed our yoke when we were in Egypt and took us out into freedom. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.